So today we're actually starting on some of the fun stuff. We are going to be working on performance. I bought headers and I want to get them done before the weather gets too cold, because there's going to be some welding down on the bottom on the exhaust that I'm not going to be able to do. I've never done welding and I do want to learn, but haven't had the time or the money to kind of get into that yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by actually wrapping the headers. If I cut over to the engine bay, what you'll see is that there's a bunch of EGR stuff and some exhaust protection stuff. So to kind of prevent throwing a bunch of heat on that side of the engine where there hasn't been heat before, we're going to take a look at the headers and we're going to wrap them. And the headers I got, they're Holley, they're fine, but they're not especially pretty. I didn't decide to pay extra for polished headers or anything like that. They're just black. So yeah, we're going to wrap that today, and we'll see what wrapping headers looks like. There's kind of a technique to it, so I want to step through that. All right, so the fun stuff. We are going to use header wrap on our headers. So this is 100 feet of header wrap, and what it is, it's like a very heavy insulation basically, and it's made out of fiberglass, so we're going to need to wear gloves and a mask when we're working with it. But this is what we're going to be wrapping the header in. Here are some metal, basically like metal ties that you use to hold the top and bottom of the wrap onto the header so it doesn't come loose. Got our gasket. Obviously you're going to need an exhaust gasket for the header. And then, ooh, a nice black Holley 4-in-1 Doherty header. And because this is a kit built for this car, it also comes with basically the exhaust side of things. So this is where the welding is going to happen that I'm not going to be able to do. You're going to cut the existing exhaust pipe and weld this on. It's going to come on here, and basically this and this exhaust like metal gasket are going to bolt together. To hold the header onto the existing exhaust. I've got a bunch of hardware which I'm going to gather up and put in a Ziploc and just make sure we have everything that we need. Alright, so to do this job safely, you are going to want a pair of gloves, a pair of safety glasses, some scissors to cut the wrap, and then you're going to need a pair of just wire cutters to cut these when we're done. And the idea is that you wrap from the bottom of the collector all the way to the top. And you always save basically one header tube to wrap. You're going to wrap the entire bottom of the collector up through the header tube to one tube to get more of a uniform look. What I'm struggling with here is the clearances are really, really tight on this header tube. So if we look, you can see you've got some space up here, but then the clearances get tight. You get a little more space down here, but I mean this side especially, there's no room. So I'll see the wrap's a little thicker than kind of the DIYs I was looking at to figure out how I was going to do this back when I ordered these parts. So I'm going to see what the spacing looks like, and we may just do basically two big wraps, right? So I'll start down here, wrap one up, and then wrap the whole thing up to the second side. And a couple of things that are optional depending on the wrap that you're using is a spray bottle. So this wrap that I'm using, like I said, it's basically insulation. It's going to be a little bit firm. In order to get like a tighter, more flexible wrap, you're going to want to put some water on it. Some people dunk it. From what I've been reading, you're going to want to use like a spray bottle. So I just created one. I didn't have one on hand, but that should work just fine. And another thing, it's optional but recommended, especially if you're in a tight space and you're using this kind of wrap, is to have some sort of mask. So you could use like smaller masks like folks were using during COVID. What I'm going to use, I have this for doing drywalling, things like that, where you can get a little bit more in your lungs. I have this kicking around, so I'm just going to use this like pod mask filter. They're really useful to have because I've done woodworking and things like that I definitely should not have done in confined spaces, and I got some coughs after, things like that, stuff that you don't really want to be doing, so I don't really take chances on that anymore. So next we're going to measure out. We're going to open this up and measure things out and take it from there. Alright, so as soon as I start cutting this stuff, I'm going to put my mask on, but what I recommend doing and what I've seen other folks do is create a loop of the material and basically count the loops you're going to need with a 1/4 inch overlap. So put your finger like a 1/4 inch from the farthest down where you're going to start. You move that up, it's 2 loops. And leave another 1/4 inch, and that's 3 loops. You can display that a little bit better. So I think I'm going to need about 3 loops worth of material, right? So I came down here, started as low as I could. This would be helpful if I had a vice grip, but start basically up at the top, do a 1/4 inch of area where you're going to overlap, then bring it up. So that's 1 loop, 2 loops. And then we're going to do another 1/4 inch of overlap, bringing up 3 loops. So I think 3 loops is going to get us right to where we need to be. Always leave a little bit extra just in case. You can always trim it. So that's what we're going to do for this first header. Like I said, these are going to be tough. When coming around a bend like this, right here, this is going to be an interesting one to start with. When coming around a bend, you're always going to use less on the inside, and you're going to want to maintain that 1/4 inch loop on the outside. So now that I have that idea, I'm going to have to trim a little bit off too, so I'm just going to be really careful. So here's roughly my loop I was using, right about here. Do 1 loop, that is 2 loops, and 3 loops. So it's a little bit messy. And basically what I'm going to do here is leave some extra material. I bought way too much, so I have some I can waste. I can always trim it off at the end. You see my loops are getting a little bit shorter too. I don't really like that. So then roughly I'm going to give myself an extra loop's worth of area. I'm going to stick my mask on and just start cutting this. You're also going to want to make sure you look for the woven side, and you're going to put that basically collector and header side in. So there's one side that's kind of smooth, the other side that's kind of woven. You want that inside to trap the heat. That's cut. Now we're gonna get it a little bit wet. We're gonna fold over an edge like this and basically start wrapping and anchoring from the bottom to the top. If this was a really big header with really long pipes, I would do what's called priming, which is where I lay out the wrap in the order it's gonna be wrapped in, basically right along the pipes. It makes it a lot easier. You can feel an immediate difference after getting it wet, kind of what the material is going to feel like. Well, as brutal as that was to watch, that's a really hard one to fucking start with. It's so far from perfect, but it's actually going to be hidden pretty much up to right here. So basically what I'm going to try to do is make happy little trees out of accidents. I'm going to try and keep everything straight and good looking at the top here, but because this is all going to get wrapped over basically up to the start, I'm going to be more careful with the bigger wraps because the tolerances here, like on this, are ridiculous. Ridiculous. Rinse and repeat for what we've already done. I'm going to do all 4 of these and then run 2 long collectors up to the top. All right, so it looks like we need 4, I just measured, we need 4 wraps for each side here. And then I'm gonna wrap this to here, and then the whole collector up to here. And I think we'll have everything we need. So I messed up. I was wrapping all 4 and I realized that I need, in order to hide the wrap here, I need to come around and basically land on this one, right? So like one wider down to shorter, and I started to do this one here. I had it all ready to go and then realized same thing. That really wide wrap's gonna come around and then go short and finish here. And that way I don't have a band here and a band here and then band, 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 band. It's just 4 bands up through the top. So I've gotten this wrap around, and what I found, you saw it in the last shot, is that I'll get this to a good length and then cut it. What I was having trouble with is getting just the right length here. I want the overlap to be perfect, but when you're switching from 2 to 1, it's a little tricky. It's not that hard, but you gotta be really careful trying to keep it tight and have full header coverage without like a small gap, kind of like that has right now. So I'm just trying to get the wrap just right to cover all of the pipes. But yeah, so one thing to do is when you get to here, fold it so when you kind of get that feeling through, like, you know, kind of feel that out, trim it now, tuck it under, and then fold it. Unfortunately, this one's come loose, so I'm gonna have to reseal it. It's tight under this wrap, which is good. Like the start's pretty good there, but I'm gonna have to retighten this end. So more work, more fun.
Yo.
The trying to get these to wrap to a single point has been a pain. What I ran into, I actually had everything lined up perfectly, kind of what you saw in the last cuts. I had pulled this one back and made a longer one. I was going to basically make this the last point, but I couldn't get wraps around this pipe. That's been the nightmare that I've been dealing with, just trying to get a wrap around this pipe that looks good. Because of this basically turning into a giant Y, there's no good clean straight angle. I'm trying to make it look like everything's coming out like clearly completely wrapped, and it's just not happening. So I'm gonna do the best I can. I'm not gonna undo the wrap, even if it's a little sloppy. I'll leave it on there, but I'm doing my best. It's like I said, it was probably the 6th iteration of doing this, but we're gonna try and get through it. So here is our final product, our wrapped headers. Honestly, I wish I could have done better. I really did try. I think I put 8 hours into the awful job you see here. Some of that lack of experience and lack of skill, totally. Most of it, I guess. A lot of it was, I think this is a kind of a hard set to start with just because of the shape. The area in here, there was no good angle. The tolerances are so close because this is such a small inline 4-cylinder that there isn't a lot of length or space. It would be easier if I could have wrapped smaller bits together here, maybe broken apart in this area, but there's really nothing for me. So really all I tried to get was heat coverage along with wraps at the top, individual wraps, like not just wrap the 2 pipes the whole way up, to give it a little bit, like I really did try. And it stinks because this went through a few iterations and it did look good at points. I just couldn't get, basically there was exposed pipe in one tiny angle in the center here. No matter which way I did it, I tried wrapping it up this way, I tried wrapping it from the bottom up this way, and the bottom, because of the way the collector is and having to use some water with this, is a little bit loose, so I added a clamp down there as well, which you really shouldn't have to do. It should be tight enough that you don't have to do that. I'll install it this way, I'll run it, it's functional, right? It will protect the car from heat, so that's good. Looks wise, I may end up pulling it off and going with something else. Well, when I say going with something else, just the black paint that's on it. It wouldn't be hard to undo it. You could just cut right down the middle and pull this off. You just run a razor blade across it a couple times, you'd be able to pull it out in pieces. It wouldn't take you very long. So that's a backup plan if I'm, and I'm not being too worried about it throwing heat, or if it's just too ugly to stand. But for right now, I think functionally it's there. It will, it'll work. So next we're gonna basically prep the car for the header installation and install the headers. That may be one video, maybe 2. It depends on how long it takes me to kind of pull things off. And if the bolts for the header come loose easy. If they don't, it's gonna be a whole thing. So thanks for watching. We can check one thing off our list, which is wrapping. It's a good experience. I hope there's some good tips in there. I mean, I was following a really good process for most of it, kind of right up until the end. And if you basically do what I was trying to do, which is anchor a piece, leave 1/4 inch overlaps, measure your folds, and make sure you're wearing some protection. I still got some fiberglass on me, but make sure you're wearing some protection. You could potentially wrap headers using that information. Just these ones didn't come out how I was hoping. But that's all right. We'll run it. All right, guys. Thanks for watching.
As always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. It would really help me out. Tune in next time as we work on the Celica.